Well, I now want to transition to another way that we can honor our partners, and that's by learning to speak their love language. You might be familiar with the popular book, The 5 Love Languages, written by Gary Chapman. Basically, Chapman claims that we all have a deep need to be loved, and that this need is at the heart of the marriage relationship. He goes on to say that each of us has a love account, like a bank account. And when this account is full, we feel loved and good about ourselves. However, when the account is empty, we feel unloved and unhappy. Partners can learn to fill one another's love accounts if they understand one another's love language. The problem is that a lot of spouses speak different love languages, and so even though they're trying to communicate love to one another, their messages are not received. Suppose your partner expressed genuine love for you, but in a foreign language that you didn't understand. You'd conclude that your partner had no love for you. The frustration for your partner might be that this is the only language he speaks. And does the fact that your partner shared his or her love in a language that you don't understand make that love any less real? Well, the problem is that most people communicate love towards their partners in a way they recognize rather than the way their partner recognizes. The point of love languages is to learn to understand your partner's love language and fill your partner's love account in ways that they can accept and understand. So what I'd like to do is offer a description of the 5 love languages as defined by Chapman. And then I'm going to give you an exercise to figure out your love language as well as that of your partner so that you can better speak one another's languages. One language is words of affirmation. This love language is the ability to positively affirm one another. One way to do this is to compliment or acknowledge people for what we appreciate about them, what they do, how they appear, who they are. Thanks for paying those bills today. I really respect your honesty in sharing your concerns with your boss. That had to take a lot of courage. Words of affirmation may also take the form of encouragement or even standing up for a spouse when they're feeling discouraged. Today was a setback, but I believe in you. You've touched a lot of lives through your teaching. Words of affirmation are kind and loving, never meant to manipulate another into doing what we want, but rather encourage them in what they desire. A second language is quality time. This is more than being in close proximity. It has to do with giving someone our full attention. Whatever activity that you're involved in is secondary to the emotional connection or your togetherness. One form this takes is listening with empathy and drawing the other person out to truly understand their feelings and desires. People whose love language is quality time also require disclosure from others. Conversations can't just be one way. They want two-way dialogue. People who like quality time also like to do activities together. It can be taking a walk, going to a symphony, or planting a garden. The important ingredient is that both of you know that you're doing these activities to express your love by being together. Well, a third love language is receiving gifts. Gifts are visual symbols of love. A gift is something tangible that lets your spouse know that you're thinking of them and that you have love for them. Gifts can be purchased, found, or made. More important than whether or not they cost money is the fact that they represent an expression of love. It's the thought behind the gift that counts most. And this is one of the easiest love languages to learn, although it can be a challenge to spouses that don't like to spend money. If this is a love language of your spouse, you fill your spouse's tank and make an investment in the relationship by giving them gifts. There's one gift in particular that speaks loudly to those whose love language is receiving gifts, and that is the gift of yourself, your physical presence, particularly in times of crisis. A fourth love language is acts of service. This language is expressing love by doing things that you know your spouse appreciates. This can include cooking dinner, running an errand, doing the laundry, washing the car, raking leaves, or changing a baby's diaper. Not all acts of service are equal. Your acts need to be those that are most important to your spouse. If acts of service is your primary love language, then you need to make requests, by the way, not demands or criticism, but you need to make requests about the kind of service you would like. If it's the love language of your spouse, then you need to ask what kinds of service would help him or her feel most love. Don't assume, ask. You then need to do that service on a regular basis, even though it takes time, planning, and effort. Doing acts of service often requires that you break out of your stereotypes of the roles of husbands and wives or the way in which your parents acted in their relationships. If done with the right spirit, acts of service will make a tremendous difference in your marriage. Well, the final love language is physical touch. We know that touch is critical to human development, and for some people, it's their primary love language. Without it, they feel unloved. There's a sense that whatever is me resides inside my body, and so to touch my body is to touch me. It's important to realize that intercourse is only one way of expressing the love of touch. In fact, physical touch has many other dialects, including holding hands, running fingers through hair, back rubs, kissing, embracing, and so on. In fact, people who feel love through touch enjoy all its forms, both explicit and subtle. For example, just brushing against each other when passing in the hallway, or putting a hand on a shoulder when pouring a cup of coffee, or subtle touching doesn't take a lot of time, but it may require a great deal of thought, especially for those that didn't grow up in a touching family. Coming up with new and exciting ways to touch your spouse may be an emotional lifeline to those whose language is physical touch. Now, I want to point out, men sometimes mistakenly assume physical touch is their primary love language because they have such an intense desire for sexual intercourse. For men, a desire for sex is physical, caused literally by the buildup of sperm and seminal fluid. For women, it's more emotional. She desires intercourse when she feels loved and cherished. So I invite you to be aware that physical touch is not the primary love language for men if they don't enjoy physical touch in other ways and at non-sexual moments.